Hello, David Tritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. On this channel, we are all about storytelling, and we have an incredible storyteller today that has actually written a book on his stories in the world of James Bond. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Welcome, David.
How are you? How have you been? You been well?
I've been very well, yeah. I just had a big presentation of my book last night with about 240 people in a big cinema. And I presented my book with lots of films and clips, and they were all very excited.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I share in that excitement because I was able to read quite a few excerpts from your book. Let's start with the basics. How did you get involved in the world of James Bond to begin with?
Well, I was in the States for about 3 years, working on ski as a ski instructor in Killington, in Vale and Aspen. And also that's how I got in touch the first time with film. We were doing like commercials for the stations like Aspen and Vale and all that. And then my father called me in 68 and he said, they're doing a film up on the mountain on Piz Gloria in Murren. It sounds like somebody said like James Bond film, and they're looking for great skiers. So I went back to Switzerland, and I went up to Murren and introduced myself to the production manager, who was Hubert Fröhlich at this time.
And then they said, you are a crazy good skier. And so did they tell you right away what you're going to be doing with the film?
Well, they showed us the storyboards and they told us the story that we have to chase Bond down the mountain and shooting after him. And, if you chasing Bond and always shooting and you always miss him. You never really catch him. That's the whole story, always in the Bond pictures. And that was funny. But I had a big advantage because I spoke very well English. So I was also involved in making translations in the different departments. And so that's really how I get to know the film business.
What I loved about this and reading this in the book is that you were a young man. Were you already a James Bond fan? And when you hear the news that you're going to be in a James Bond film, what goes through your head?
Well, for me, it was an amazing opportunity to be part of a James Bond film. We heard of James Bond film. We went to look the ones, with Sean Connery, and that we were very excited about Bond films. And so I suddenly confronted with being part as a skier chasing Bond in a Bond film. So that for a young mountain boy who grows up in the mountains and is a good skier, that's an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's maybe a chance never comes back.
Well, speaking of never come back, it did come back because I remember reading that you were like a Swiss Army knife in the sense that you were multi-utility. So not only were a great skier, stuntman, you could perform, but like you said, you could do the Swiss and German and English translations. So right away, they find out that, Stefan is a multi-use tool. So how do you get engaged with the next film?
Well, I was then, we were finished in springtime, 1969. And I went back to Wengen and they were doing the film over there, Downhill Racer, with Robert Redford and Gene Hackman. So they had to redo some scenes and they had to add some racing scenes, which they were missing in the cutting room. So I could actually start right away on that film, Downhill Racer, with Rob. I was doubling for Robert Redford. And that was another amazing experience for me to double for Robert Redford.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Now, I have to ask you a question, just thinking back to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. When you saw the film in the theater, Were you able to spot yourself?
Yeah, because you knew you knew your style, and you recognized yourself immediately. But what I also learned, when you see yourself on films, you actually learn to ski better, and to ski better for the camera, and
Mm,
to look really good on the screen when you're skiing. And that helped me a lot. We saw that also in the rushes, we did every day, we did our scenes, and then a few days later we see rushes, and then you see what you are doing right and what you are doing wrong. And that was a big help for me, how to ski really nice for the film, for the camera.
absolutely. And what did you think about the film overall? Are you a fan of that particular film?
Well, I think it's still an amazing film because there's a lot of black English humor in there, and there's a lot of skiing. There are car races. It's actually the whole palette of winter sports is in that film, and also the location was amazing. And still now they making research. I think 55 years later, there's still 75% of the people who go up there, they go up there because they want to see the site of a bond shoot.
That's true. I was just there just a few months ago, as a matter of fact, and it doesn't look that much different. It's amazing how they've made it into a whole museum.
Yeah, and they're rebuild. I think they're making now a new cable car, but they will want to restore the old the peak, the Piz Gloria. So that's all on big iron bars and well protected. And underneath, they're building a new cable car.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of construction going on. Well, so Eon, from what I've read, basically, obviously, kept your contact information. At what point do they re-engage you for the Roger Moore films?
Well, that was actually, I've proved myself being very helpful as a translator.
Mhm.
And because wherever we went, I did all this pre-title shooting in the mountains, and they know that I know a lot about snow, and they know that I speak English well. So I was a big help for them, and I was immediately part of this beautiful Bond family.
Yeah, it's amazing. Didn't they gave you a nickname of the Snowman, didn't
The
they?
snowman, that's right. Yeah. Barbara called me the snowman. And whenever there was something in the mountains in the script, or something to do with mountains, climbing or snow or skiing, she called and she told her producers to call the snowman.
And I love the fact that it's important for people to know who want to purchase this book, and we have links down below to purchase it. That she actually wound up doing the forward, the beginning of your book, and tells a very funny story about a certain naked Stefan on ice. Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, that was very interesting. We had over the night, we had a lot of snow falling down onto this frozen lake where we did this scene in The Living Daylights with Timothy Dalton.
Hmm.
And we were cleaning that. There was like 2 feet of snow, and we were cleaning. We had all the farmers coming with their tractors and cleaning off that ice. But we had such a big pile of snow on the edge of the lake. So we couldn't actually shoot, and we had to get rid somehow. We had to get rid of that snow. So I ordered one of these big snow cats. I mean, they're 5 tons heavy or something like that. But nobody wanted to drive it on that lake because they were all were scared. So I had no other choice than drive it myself. So I was driving this heavy equipment on this frozen lake, and it worked very well. I pushed that big pile of snow away so we could shoot the next day. But somehow on the way back to onto the lake, I suddenly, when I put the reverse into, I heard cracking and I broke through the ice. and I was drowning with that big piece of equipment. That snowcat just started disappearing in the lake, and the cabin I couldn't get out because the broken ice chunks. They closed in from the side and they closed the door, and I tried to kick out the windows. It didn't work. And the water is already up and my head is just sticking above the water, and the ceiling of the top of this cabin was right on my head, and I was start really drowning. And but you don't feel it. The water is so cold, and you have
Yeah.
so much adrenaline. So you're not really scared. You just try to escape somehow. And in the last moment, the ice master jumped into before the thing went down, jumped into the water, and he ripped open a part of the door. So he just could open it a little bit, and I just could get out, and otherwise I would have drowned. I still had a lot of nightmares for many years. I had bad dreams,
Oof.
when you're captured in a cabin like that, and you go underwater, and even if you could open the door and get out, you probably don't find the hole in the ice to get out.
Yeah.
So that was quite an experience.
Oh my gosh, it's like that's something right out of a James Bond film. I mean, you do
Yeah,
like harrowing escapes that James Bond
yeah.
does, but unfortunately, it
And
was in
then
real
I
life.
took the clothes off there, and I put fresh clothes on, warm up myself, and we continued the work. And she's writing in that foreword that she had the story a bit different, but I didn't know exactly what she meant.
Well, it's so funny. I was reading that and I'm laughing out loud because, it seems like she's got a great sense of humor and she obviously adores you. But, seeing this naked man standing, next to this hole in the ice,
Yeah,
shivering. I mean, the way she paints the story, it's a little different in the sense of a different point of view, but it's still a great
yeah,
story.
yeah, because it was very cold. It was yeah, it was very cold, and if you keep these clothes on, I mean, they freeze, and you take them off, dry yourself off with a blanket, and then you get another jacket, and then you go home and put on fresh clothes,
Yeah. And it's
and
interesting too.
the work goes on.
The work goes on. It's funny too because as I read the book, there's almost an evolution of what you do for James Bond. So yes, you started out as a skier, then through many things like even Spectre, you're the Snowman again. But then some things like Quantum of Solace, it's really to organize the opera in Tosca, for example. So I know it's a lot of translation, but it seems like you're a jack of all trades. Like they would have you do many different things on the films.
Well, I had then the chance after the downhill racer. I met the first assistant director, and he saw immediately that I can also work with extras and get the department sorted out with my knowledge of the language, and could be a translator. And at this time, there were a lot of international films made in the Bavaria studios.
Mm.
There you see it also in the book, and all these films we made had actually nothing to do with snow. And there was quite a big gap between the film on Her Majesty's Secret Service and then the next film, The Spy Who Loved Me. I think there's like 10 years in between. And at this time, I was working with Wolfgang Glattes. He was a very famous first AD, and we worked like on films like Cabaret, who won 8 Oscars and all that. And it was an amazing experience for me. And there I realized that there's not really you cannot make a living out of being a ski bum and doing ski stunts. There's a very limited films who are doing that. So I had, with all that experience I had in the Bavaria studios during these 8, 9 years, I really was hooked on to film, and that's when I changed and also in the Bond films more or less onto the production side.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, your organizational skills and logistics in the book really come out. And it sort of begs the question, because I know my audience is going to be craving. You must have obviously from Roger Moore on met all the Bonds. So take me through a little bit. Let's talk about each one of them. What did you think of Roger Moore?
Well, first we had after Sean Connery was Timothy Dalton.
George
No, Sean
Lazenby.
Connery was George Lazenby then on
That's
this,
right.
and after George Lazenby was Roger Moore, right? You're absolutely right.
Right.
And then I think he made some like 4 or 5 films.
Quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was a very interesting man. And due to the time that I was also more or less busy with the second unit, I didn't really got too much into contact with the main and leading actors, also like Roger Moore. But he came up when we shoot his close-ups on the glacier, when we put him on this toboggan and dragged him through the landscape, and the cameraman was sitting also on this toboggan. That's how we made these close-ups. That was very interesting. But he was a nice guy.
That's great to hear. And he seems like a nice guy, like a wonderful sort of
Yeah, he
James
was
Bond ambassador.
and I think he also was quite a good actor, and he had also this black humor came very well over, this English black humor, which I'm missing in the latest Bond films a little bit. But he was I think a fine actor, and these stories really came over well.
They really did. It's
Yeah,
interesting. You mentioned the recent films. I mean, I know that you worked, for example, like we mentioned in Quantum of Solace. You mentioned in the book that Daniel Craig was very nice to everybody, even all the
yeah.
extras. And then, of course, you were the snowman again, inspector. You had to make sure there was snow where snow should be. How did you find Daniel Craig? Good.
Well, Daniel Craig. The whole thing changed then a lot because he had like 4 or 5 bodyguards, and he was also very well protected because with the social medias there are so many people around there. Every day there were like 20 film teams from television stations. There were a lot of journalists, and actually I felt many times I felt sorry for him because he didn't have any private life anymore.
Yeah.
We had some chats when we were doing this showdown in Obertiljach, when he crashed with the Range Rover and the plane. He was around for these 3 4 days, and we had some chats there. But he was also very a bit protective. He had to protect himself
It was a different
from all
world.
this
Yeah.
media stuff.
Yeah. No, you
Because
do.
and that only became a problem in the last 3 4 years.
That makes sense.
Before, I remember when I was shooting with Pierce Brosnan on The World Is Not Enough in Chamonix. We were sitting, that was this big winter with lots of snow, and many times you didn't even go out of the hotel at night. So we were sitting on the bar. We had some nice chats, and Pierce was a really nice guy to talk to. It was a different. I mean, Craig is also a very. I met him already before the Bond films. I met him on Golden Compass.
Ah, okay.
He was in that we shot in Grindelwald, and That's where I actually met him before, and there was a bit different. We were together for like 2 3 weeks, and at this time, that was much earlier. At this time, you could be in contact with him, you could talk with him, you could sit with him on the bar, and he was a very pleasant, nice person.
That's great to hear. Now you want to hear those type of things. Now let's cover Pierce Brosnan because in the book itself, you have some amazing stories. I mean, I will tell people out there, if you're a Brosnan fan, especially, you're going to love this book. But there's a great picture of you and Pierce Brosnan kind of arms around each other, smiling. Um,
Yeah.
what did you think of him as a James Bond?
I think he was a very good James Bond.
I agree.
You know, he came after Timothy Dalton because Timothy Dalton was a he was a very calm, nice guy, but I don't think he was a real James Bond.
Hmm.
He
Okay.
was a pleasant guy, but and I think they already wanted Pierce Brosnan, but he was involved with that TV series
Remington
Remington
Steele.
Steele,
Yeah, you're right. That's right.
and so they couldn't get him. So that they took Timothy Dalton. He came over in this movies quite well, but when I was listening to people and they when I asked him what do you think from Tim, yeah, he's a nice guy and he's a nice person. He's a good actor, but he's not really the tough. He doesn't present the tough James Bond.
Yeah, there's a whole resurgence of people that love Timothy Dalton. I think, it's two extremes, it seems. It's nobody that's
Yeah,
moderate. But with Pierce Brosnan, I find that I absolutely thought he was phenomenal. I think he had a nice combination of Connery swagger, but also the Roger Moore humor. So he had that kind of lightness that you and I look for in Bond films. How was he when the cameras weren't rolling? Like you said at the bar and stuff like that, he was just seemed like a very gracious guy.
yeah, we had actually a very good understanding because we were we had somehow the same chemistry and also our background. You know, his wife died early and he raised his kids. And I knew how it is. I lost my mother when I was 5 years old. And so we had a lot of things very the same, you know, and we were able to discuss about God and the world, and that was it was not just small talk, and it was we had quite some deep conversations, and for me, he was also a guy who had an aura which you could
Mm,
feel.
yeah.
It sometimes he had a good heart. He was a good-hearted human being. But the other guys I really like too, but I didn't get that close with the other guys because I was quite a long time together with him in Chamonix, and we had the time to get to know each other a bit better.
I love that I'm hearing that he is approachable and relatable because he's a movie star, and you want to hear that these people are humans behind the scenes. But Stefan, I've got to ask you a big question because I love that you're telling these stories, and I've told people about this book, and I said it is such an amazing book just to pick up as a Bond fan and read the amazing stories, this journey that you've been on. But why did you write the book? I mean, there must have been a reason of why did you sit down and start to put this together?
Well, I think I have that at the end in the reflections. I had a brain stroke 3 years ago,
Hmm.
and my it my leg was gone. I couldn't walk anymore. I came back in a wheelchair, and then with my will, I I I was so anxious to get back on my legs and do what I did before, and then they also discovered a brain tumor, and that brain tumor was the size of a small orange. It didn't bother me for the moment but they discovered that it's still growing, and so I had a big brain operation. They took off the whole skull, and they took this tumor out, and I recovered actually quite well. in about 4 weeks. I recovered quite well. And I wanted to know if my hard disk in my brain is still functioning.
Makes sense.
So that was the decision to make that book. So I ordered all my 45 big feature films I was working on. I ordered them on DVDs, and I looked at all these films, and especially at the parts where I was involved in. And then I realized that everything what is stored in the subconscious, that all these stories and these anecdotes come back. And that's when I decided to make this book. And that was in the 1921, in May. May 21, I decided to make this book, and then I was working on this book almost for 2.5 years.
Wow, since 2021, my gosh. So it's a bit of a passion project, obviously love, but it's also sort of a way for you to kind of get yourself back to things as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, that was for me some kind of proof. I'm still limping a bit, but I'm skiing, I'm playing golf, and I'm 78 years old now. I just wanted to give all the people who has, there are a lot of people having brain strokes and brain operations, and I just want to give them that they believe on that if you have the will. I think in a way it's a mental. It's very mental, and everything starts in the head.
Yeah.
And if you want to do something, you can reach it and you can succeed. And my goal was really to work so hard on my walking, on my brain. And that was the reason why I made this book.
Well, you've turned this from a James Bond discussion to an incredibly inspirational one. So I want to thank you for that. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. We had this lovely discussion today. We put all the links down below. I'd love my audience to read this. It's an amazing book. I'm going to be taking my time with this as well. And I still have a few more pieces and parts to get through. But Stefan, let's absolutely stay in touch, and the best of luck with the book. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, it was an amazing opportunity also to talk to you. And what I also, and that was, like I said, that was the reason I want to make the people who going to see your show and having the same problem or having had a brain stroke, that there is a way back. Yeah. And I want to give them hope, but they have to work on it. It's a hard day's work every time you get up in the morning.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's worth it.
And I had that also with my crew. You have to love people. You have to love people to work with them. Yeah. And you have to be a good communicator, but a good communicator have to be also a good listener. You have to listen to people. I never made a decision without asking my crew and asking my head of departments how they would do it. And that's how I made a decision. And I'm missing that a bit today in this new management system and the CEOs. You have to love people you work with them. And also this email stuff that drives me up the wall. Why should I send the email to the next table? Just to protect my ass.
Yeah.
Why don't I go over there and talk to this person?
Real lessons to be learned in this conversation.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of companies, they're already coming back to this dialogue stuff that you have to talk together.
Yeah.
And you don't only have to talk, you only have to communicate visual. Because that's more important. Because if I tell somebody a story and then I tell somebody else the same story, but they see it in their head, in their brain, it makes other pictures
That's
from
right.
everyone. So the
Interpretation.
communication we did in all these films, Bond films, was really visual with storyboard artists. Then everybody's on the same track.
Yeah.
And then we all talking about the same. And we talking a lot of time. I have the feeling that we are talking past each other, you know? And that would be also nice if we could get this message over that you have to love the people you work with.
Yeah.
And you have to enjoy the job you're doing and talk to each other and be nice to each other.
Yeah. We always say on this channel, because we try to keep it very positive here, hashtag be kind. And the whole idea is that, kindness doesn't cost anything, but it pays off in dividends. And it shows your love of people and passion for what you do, truly.
Yeah, but at the moment, if I look at the world, it doesn't look like that.
Not everywhere. You
People are
gotta
not
find it.
talking together anymore.
Yeah. Sometimes you find it in conversations just like this, where new friends meet.
Yeah.
Well,
No, and David, I hope when you get over to Switzerland again, we should meet up and go and see my
100%.
mountains.
You live in my favorite place in the world, without
Yeah.
exaggeration. My wife and I always say if we escape to another country, we're going to be living in Switzerland. And Bern, where you live, is so beautiful.
And I mean that valley where I grow up. I mean, this is paradise.
Paradise. There's nothing like it in the
It's
world.
paradise.
Yeah.
No, it's paradise.
Well, listen, my friend, I'm going to let you return to that paradise. We're going to enjoy a little piece of it through your
Yeah.
book. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah. Thank you very much, too,
You
David. It
got
was
it.
nice to chat to you. Thank
We'll
you
talk
very
soon.
much.
And in the meantime, this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. We'll see you all real soon. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.